Hi, and welcome to What Do You Think? I am Sheryl Atkins. I'm your host, a parent, an educational attorney, and a seasoned litigator. And next to me is my husband of 25 years, William Atkins.
Hi, I'm William Atkins. I'm a lifelong educator, and I'm your content administrator.
So in this series, we will watch educational videos and offer our reactions, our thoughts, and our insights. Today's video has a speaker by the name of Angela Duckworth, and Ms. Duckworth talks about grit. So let's take a listen.
When I was 27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. The kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough.
So what are your initial thoughts?
Well, two things. One thing is, first of all, she's a first-year teacher. Most first-year teachers think they're exceptional teachers. Like, they walk in the classroom day one and they're ready to teach high level. And more times than not, that's not the case.
Yeah.
You know, it takes 2 years to keep teachers in the building. A lot of times teachers first start the profession. If we're going to lose them in education, we'll lose them in year 1 or year 2. But if you're a first-year teacher, it's like anything else. You're going to learn. You're learning your craft. You're learning how to teach. And as long as you're under strong instructional leadership, you can become a much better teacher. So the first thing is she's a first-year teacher, and it sounds like her kids are struggling in her classroom. A lot of them. That's the impression I got. Number two, though, the good thing about her is when she was a first-year teacher, she believed in her kids. She didn't say, well, these kids are the smart kids, they're going to do well, and these kids are not as intelligent, they're not going to do as well. She believed in all her kids, and that's key. And that's probably the most important thing, is believing in your kids that they can be success in your classroom. So 2 things, those are my 2 initial impressions. Let's watch on, okay?
After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies, asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals.
So, I know with our own children that, we work really hard with them, and over the years they've developed hard work and consistency. Can you tell us about how hard work and consistency played a role in their development?
Yeah, so we live 10 minutes from the local high school. Our kids play, the two main sports are soccer. Our girls play soccer, and our son plays football. So you can get full access to that field, the local high school, but you got to do one or two things. You got to be able to deal with the cold weather, because in the cold they're not playing those turf-based sports. Or two, you get up early in the morning before the sports teams get there, if you want to get access to that field and work out with your kids. So, every morning, especially in the summertime, they hear me say, "Okay, come on downstairs, boys and girls, come eat your breakfast, grab your cleats, grab your water bottle, and let's head for the school." And so we put an hour in every day, 5-6 days a week on soccer, on football. They worked on passing and trapping and shooting or dribbling or throwing the football or the short pass and long pass. But one thing they got from me and you was, if you want to be really good at something, you have to work really hard at it every day, every week, every month, year after year. Our kids learn that through sports. So that's one thing they learned.
So it seems that they were definitely compliant, right? Because you would get them out of bed, you would have them come down, and you would take them to practice, right? So did that also mean that they were developing grit?
I think they developed grit, but like you said, there's really more compliance than grit. Like Dad says, "Come on downstairs," they're gonna listen and come on downstairs. But I think grit is more than that. I think grit is when you do all the right things. You work really hard to meet success, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on the field of athletics, or whether it's in the workplace. You work really hard and things don't go the way you want them to go. But then, as opposed to you quitting and say, "Oh, I'm done with it. I'm not good at this." That's not grit. Grit is being reflective, thinking about what you're going to do to get better, analyzing that thing, and then putting in the effort to address the shortcomings. That's grit.
Yeah. You
get knocked down, you get back up. There's a coach, I'm not going to say his name, but he said, insanity is doing the same thing time and time again and expecting to get a different result. So if you just go back to the practice field, you're not doing anything different, or you go back to this workplace, you're not doing anything different, that's insanity.
Yeah.
You got to rethink, reflect, and try again to make success. That's grit, trying and trying again.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yep.
Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure, things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, it's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out. To me, the most shocking thing about grit is how little we know, how little science knows about building it. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? What do I do to teach kids a solid work ethic? How do I keep them motivated for the long run? The honest answer is, I don't know. What I do know is that talent doesn't make you gritty. Our data show very clearly that there are many talented individuals who simply do not follow through on their commitments. In fact, in our data, grit is usually unrelated or even inversely related to measures of talent. So far, the best idea I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Sheryl Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail.
So you have been an educator for many years, Bill, and I know you deal with the fixed and the growth mindset. Can you give us a brief explanation as the difference between them?
Well, the fixed mindset is the belief that if you're not good at something, let's say math, regardless of how hard you try, you won't be good at math. So when you don't do well on the test, you get an answer wrong. That's just an example of you not being good at that. So when you don't meet success, oh, well, I'm not good at math anyway, so why try harder? That's the fixed mindset. The growth mindset is just the opposite. The growth mindset is I can meet success in almost anything if I try hard, if I'm being reflective in my thought process, if I'm trying and trying again. So if you don't do well on the math test and you have the growth mindset, the person with the growth mindset is going to say, okay, I didn't do well on this test. I need to rethink how I'm going to prepare for this test again or on the next test. So that may mean going to coach class. They may mean sitting down with a study group. Kids doing really well in that test and working with those kids to do better on the test. Or it could just mean making a practice test to prepare for the real test. So growth mindset kids are going to be more successful academically because they don't give up, they keep trying, they believe in their abilities, and when they fail, it's not indicative of their lack of ability to get something right. It's just they failed, they'll try and try again. And so parents want to develop the growth mindset in their kids. One of the things we did last year, wrote this book called Mind Growers. It talks about the growth versus fixed mindset and how parents can use this book to develop the growth mindset in their kids. You went to law school, right?
Yes.
I heard, I didn't go to law school, you did, but I heard that going to law school is tough, especially your first year. There's tons of reading. So did you have to demonstrate grit in law school? And talk about that real quick.
Yeah, definitely. Most of nights, you're reading potentially 500 pages a night because each professor usually have 4 to 5 classes, and in each class, the professor could easily have you reading 100 pages per night, and you had to be ready and prepared in class the next day to go over those materials. So you had to have consistency, you had to have commitment, perseverance, and grit, to meet success and to get through those programs. So absolutely.
Okay. So we know why we chose this video, right? We believe in grit, and we express our views, our thoughts. But we want folks to subscribe, comment, and like on this video. So that's how we feel. We want folks to comment on how they feel in the comment section. Can you discuss our website real quick?
And you can also reach us on raising.greatnessbooks.org. There you can access our books and also connect with us on social media. So until next time,
Raise greatness.